Evening, ma'am. My name is Glorya Olviana, and now I want to tell the story of the title is The Problem Is. It was day 458 for Paul. He weighs in, a, in at a 58 kilos, down from a strapping 93. He was also 58 years old counting. His doctor prognosed it and Paul felt old, sick and wasted. His body no longer his own and tomorrow would be 119 and 99. Another absolutely nothing new year. It was years now his ex met what silence equals death mean. He'd be the first to admit to being a simple guy, the one whose IQ matched his shoe size, a running joke back to the warehouse. Matt smiled broad and explained that it meant if you don't talk, more would die. But that was before. Now it was just a problem without solution. Paul was dying and he was alone. His weary frame slumped in the lazy boy, the way of his head drawing, chin to sternum, arms flapped for the TV remote, and a pile of Christmas mail fell to the floor. The screen glowed, crowds screamed, jumping up and down, but his brain wasn't processing the scene. Having fun with falling snow, lights of Times Square bragging that New York never sleeps, especially on New Year's. Back in some recess corner of his mind, he knew someone was coming soon to help him up, clean him up, and set him up to struggle through another day. His eyes closed with sleep as the ball dropped. Mr. Hilson, sir, let's get you up. A kind voice, the voice of a home care person, gently roused him. It took long minutes for his eyes to focus. Cherry had come. Yes, of course, she'd come. She was paid. It was her job. Oh, you came. I'm so lonely. Where's Matt? A New Year, right? Matt's coming. You will help us celebrate. But Paul's last words were feeble, just matching his mind, just matching his body. He felt upward pressure under his armpits. Come on, Mr. Helson. Let's get you up. Can you walk a bit on your own? Or should I get you a walker? And Matt, he can help me too. Yes, Mr. Hilson, yes. Matt's not here. He's gone, remember? Come, let's go. You cleaned up for the day. It's a new year, Mr. Hilson. Cherry was strong. Cherry was firm. Cherry was brave. She got Paul up and sitting on the bench of his walker and wheeled him into the bath. Turning first the hot water and then the cold, she kept a hand secure on his knee. Okay now, Mr. Hilson, let's sit in you on the pot. And then a little bath. Paul felt the steam dust his dry cracking skin, then in the fog of his eyes was smiling a misty day on the beach Bridgeport, and Matt had a stammer of bitter black coffee. They had laughed, but Paul broke four scrambled sugar cubes from his coat pocket. No plastic bag. Matt's eyes were forever shining, forever crinkling. Paul, turn around. I have a surprise for you. And Paul felt Matt's hand cover his eyes to close them, and then Matt was down in his knee, proposing with the coffee thermos in one hand and gold ring in the other. Mr. Hilson, I'm going to wash your hair. Paul felt a soft hand covering his face and recognized, in some black set crevice of his mind, that it wasn't Matt's at all. His skin felt chilled, that was vigorously rubbed dry. Okay, now up. What should we do on the first day of the New Year? I say we go for a walk. Sound good, Mr. Hilson? His body was being moved. He heard the question but could only visualize tiny sick cells with bloody jaws and unending hunger ranging up his spine, his limbs into his brain. He could feel the crawling so distinctly that his hands went to his head and pulled at uh, his thin hair. Come, Mr. Hilson, your hair is nice and fresh. Let's finish. You can get your shirt on. Wonderful. It wasn't wonderful. Paul remembered Matt's smile had slowly caused to a frown of as Paul's sores and sickness became their life. Then Matt gave up as Paul wept like a child. Matt had cried to yelling, "Love can't fix every problem." He had walked out of their apartment defeated. The problem? Paul was dying. The problem? Paul had fun when he was a younger man. The problem? Paul had not understood long words like ramification, culpability, or even immunodeficiency. The problem has no solution. Paul was so sick and now alone. Fingers had bunched on the top of his pen. He printed tight block letters to apologize, to say, "I love you, Matt, even in sickness." Mr. Hilson, concentrate. You have to straighten your arm. It will be easier for both of us. A crisp New Year's Day. The park was fresh alive. Children ran through remains of gnawing chasing pigeons. An old lady sat with moldy breath. Both were wrinkled and gray. Her metal walker pulled in tight like a fall shield against her fan club of moths. Brown birds then flew around in anticipation. Paul pushed his walker frame, feeling his feet plod after it. He was walking, he was upright. Birds were singing he would not die that day. They had to be teenagers running, blowing through noisemaker, hysterical, screaming New Year's kisses, the falling and rolling on each other. Paul could barely remember being that young, but oh yes, there was a sweet boy, played the trumpet. Paul had kissed him in the band room and felt such intense sparks. He had been young and frisky once, then high school counselor had said, "Given your grades and interests," and pushed a vocational programs brochure across the desk. His trumpet player had gone to college for a way on a music scholarship. Then a whole swath of Paul's life was eaten up until the day he met Matt. He turned to Cherry. "I'd like to walk over the pond." Cherry helped him the entire way, chatting about the birds and her growing grandchildren that lived in another city. As soon as Paul saw the water, his mind started to click through memories, and there was Matt. Ben by pond, feeding the ducks, a picnic blanket spread, and a thermos rain. Paul had stopped to watch the stranger, and then his eyes caught Matt's, and it was love in that very moment. "Grip the handle, Mr. Hilson. You almost fell there. So don't let go. Catch your breath. We'll go over that bench. Look, someone is feeding the ducks." Ducks wing pumping high overhead. "No, Matt laughed. Seagulls. They taken train that boat to the Pines, where even dogs wore bright nail polish. Yes, they dance and whoop amongst breather." Paul tried to clear his thinking, see only the water and real ducks, but he felt exhausted. A couple strolled, hands shoved deep into each other's back pockets. Paul had a thin smile at their birds tenderly as they smooched. He'd laughed deep like that once Matt had walked an aisle, not a real wedding aisle, but a celebration of their love, and their parents had amazingly stayed watching their happiness. They were a modern, gay couple of their party guests affirmed such. His brain suddenly strange and grasped for words. Those that came terminally sick alone made Paul's eyes tear. Feeling a little down, Mr. Helsen. We're here together, you know. I'm alone too. Kids gone, husband dead, ICU blood pressure medicine, life go on, you know. New Year's Day keeps on coming. I thought I was so mad by the dogs. It was a struggle to say think it. Reminded him of those cells that were swarming there, featuring victory is sight. Sit on the worker bench. Here, pick up your feet a little. I will push you, Mr. Hilton. Let's get you home. It was equally slow going back through the park. The constant stream of skateboarders and rollerbladers made the path hazardous. After Sherry had pushed Paul over a field of frozen grass, she grabbed the nearest utility pole to catch her breath. Paul's neck was turned as he looked up. There, what's that? That pink triangle? Matt explained it to me once. Oh, Mr. Hilton, that's an old flyer, was a public message. A problem we still have no good solution for, you know. Silence, death. Cherry's voice faded and whatever was unsaid. Let's get you home, Mr. Hilton. Paul dozed on the couch as his visiting helper organized his apartment. When he slowly woke, Cherry was there crunching some mail. Mr. Hilton, here, you're awake, and you have a bunch of unopened mail. Shall we go through them together? Halfway through the stack, Cherry saw the Christmas card envelope, the address, name, the turned address unknown stamp, and her hand jerk. Paul peered, reading glasses sleeping low. He saw his own awkward grade school penmanship and Matt's last address, crossed out with a firm stroke. Jerry, I need to lie down. Thank you, ma'am.